Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion on this Tuesday, the 20th of May, 2025. I'm coming to you a day later than the usual Monday show, as I had my surgery yesterday. It was at the end of last week's Tim's News Explosion. I said that it was due on Wednesday, but it was postponed, so that's life. So currently I'm doing the show with one of my legs bandaged. So I had surgery to remove varicose veins on my right leg. So I couldn't do the show last night because I was still under the effects of anesthetic and still in recovery. I'm similar to, in a way, to Sam Newman, who is currently doing his podcast, You Cannot Be Serious as a Cripple. So the show must go on, though I don't think I'll be bringing you Wilms Front this Thursday evening. Just bring you the news tonight, and then I'll get back to focusing on my recovery. We are live on the Wilms Front YouTube channel, the Wilms Front Rumble channel, and my Wilms Front X account. Hello to everyone in the live chat. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where today there was a massive rally on the steps of Victoria's Parliament House against the Allan Labor government's doubling of the emergency services levy. Well, its official name was the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund. So now it's going to be called the Fire Services Property Levy, and it's going to mainly affect farmers because they own most land mass and their property is deemed to be at more fire risk. And of course, they're the ones who are the members of the Country Fire Authority, who it's a voluntary organization. They give up their time to fight fires in their community. So there was 8,000 there today protesting, and one of them was the secretary of the United Firefighters Union, Peter Marshall. And of course, he was the one over a decade ago who got Dan Andrews agreed to merge the Metropolitan Fire Brigade with the CFA and the SES to become Fire and Rescue Victoria. So I don't think it's worked out the way that he had hoped for his members. And so this protest was on the day of the state budget, where new State Treasurer Jacqueline Symes announced an projected 600 million operating surplus for the 2025-26 financial year. So she won't know if Victoria will reach that surplus by the end of the 2026 financial year. It reminds me of how in that Julia Gillard and her treasurer Wayne Swan said that the budget would return to surplus in 2012-13. And of course, that never did. And Peter Van Onselen, who is pretty much wrong about everything, he said that he'd shave his head if they reached a surplus. Luckily, he got that one right, so he didn't have to shave his head. But I don't project that there'll be a surplus. Victoria will be back in black by this time next year. And of course, that'll be an election year. And of course, this is only a paper surplus because it doesn't include the off-budget big build projects which are continuing. So the state's debt will grow to 195 billion by the 2028-2029 financial year. And this could possibly lead to another credit downgrade. So Victoria has already been downgraded from AAA to AA. And now this state Labor government knows that it couldn't get away with cutting frontline services such as health and education to rein in the debt. So it goes for tax increases instead. Now, Jacqueline Symes said there would be no new taxes in the budget, while the emergency services levy, which is still a tax, was passed last night. So it's, again, weasel words, it's technically not a budget item. But a current affair last week, they did a story on a small business owner, Angie Romas, who runs a sandblasting and painting business, who has seen his land tax bill in the past 10 years go from 8,700 for a 4-acre block in Dandenong South. This year, it'll be 203,600. Every February, it'll go up by 50,000. We're punished for just being here. Now, it says further up here that he employs a dozen workers and supplies materials to some of Victoria's major projects. So he's obviously benefited from the big build as well. So obviously the big bill at the end, they've decided to tax the very businesses that they've created the workforce. So it's basically become full circle. So of course there's the Metro Tunnel, which is supposed to open up this year, and the Westgate Road Tunnel, and then of course there's the suburban rail loop. And Jacinta Allen offered as some budget sweeteners, more like bitter sweeteners, I would say, decided to offer under 18s free public transport and seniors free public transport on weekends. Now, I'm not a fan of this discounted or free public transport model. I mean, has anyone here caught a tram in Melbourne's CBD free tram zone? It's overcrowded all the time, and that's because it's free. And obviously, I believe that public transport should have to return a profit, because you don't want especially since we've got the Metro Tunnel and the suburban rail loop tunnel. I mean, the return on investment has to be that people use it, it would generate revenue. It can't just be through value capture taxes, levies, slugs. Although there is one cost saving that Jacqueline Symes has promised, cuts to the public service, which, well, Dan Andrews and his treasurer, Tim Pallas, expanded. So this is the current trajectory of Victoria's debt. So as you can see, it's gone up significantly during the COVID lockdowns, where businesses weren't allowed to operate and the government was handing out free money. Larrikin says Victoria is so fucked. Well, it doesn't seem like to me that there's a realistic way for the state Labor government to pay back the debt. And we shall see. Brad Batten told the protest today that he would repeal the levy, though if he wins the 2026 state election, he'll have to make massive cuts somewhere, because taxes are too high, spending are too high. There's going to be a lot of pain as there was during the Kennett years over 30 years ago. Nathan Swindon says the LNP has been killed. Well, the Victorian Liberals, they themselves still have to get their own act together as a party. Now, last Friday, John Prosciutto, the former Victorian Liberal leader, was ordered to pay Moira Deeming $2.3 million in her legal costs. So a friend of his, decided to launch a GoFundMe to pay the $2.3 million, though it's had its target significantly reduced, as it's 500 million. So GoFundMe only raised 144,889. So that's well below the 2.3 million. So he was featured on ABC News last night, hitting the phones, trying to get contact friends to get some money together to stop himself going bankrupt. And he was on the ABC's Q&A last night as well. I'm surprised that he could afford the car ride over. Now, Mark Knight in the Herald Sun had this hilarious cartoon. So he's begging out the front of Flinders Street Station, and this homeless man says, "Hey, get your own corner." Now, he said that he didn't compare his plight to those of the homeless, though he's basically trying to pitch to his friends that donating to me to stop me being bankrupt because of my own political mistakes and defamation of a colleague. He's now saying, "Oh, I could have handled it better." Yeah, I think now that he's facing bankruptcy, but there's a push in the Liberal Party to, well, save him from bankruptcy, because they'd worried, because he can't be in Parliament if he's a bankrupt. So there'd be a by-election in the seat of Hawthorn, and they would be worried that they'd lose it to a Teal independent. Of course, it overlaps with the federal electorate of Kooyong, where Monique Ryan just squeaked home against Liberal Amelia Hamer. So Mick Melissa says, "Nice comb over, Tim." Well, I've had a haircut last week, so I do have hair to be cut, if that's what you're implying. Good evening, Senator Slayer. And now, also in other defamation news last week, Ben Roberts-Smith lost his defamation appeal. So he lost the defamation case at the federal court against Nine, the Age and Sydney Morning Herald, from Nick Mackenzie's reports, which accused him of murdering 4 unarmed Afghan civilians. And now Ben Roberts-Smith works for Channel 7. So Kerry Stokes, the owner of Channel 7, has been bankrolling his defense. So Ben Roberts-Smith has said that he's now going to appeal to the High Court. And this is the thing with a lot of these defamation cases. The main winners are the lawyers. And in that case, 30 million has been spent by both sides. And it's turned into a bit of a media war, with obviously Channel 7 and Sky News being on Ben Roberts-Smith's side, since a rival publication has been the one who has accused him of these crimes. He's never been charged with war crimes. This is only in a civil case. It's only the balance of probabilities. Nathan Swindon says, "Based Boira making him pay." Yes, why should he be bailed out because of his own mistakes? Was too scared of Dan Andrews, what he might say. than to defend a colleague. Hello, Kino Pencil. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before. Now, before we move on to federal election news, we will focus on nationalist news because there's been some pretty big developments. Stephen Wells, who had been in prison for 3.5 months because he refused to sign bail conditions, which imposed non-association orders on him. So he chose to remain in custody for that time. I thought I had the article here ready to go. Here we go here. So Stephen Wells had his charges dropped. So he's spent 3.5 months imprisoned for no reason. So he was amongst 16 members of the National Socialist Network who were arrested on Australia Day in Adelaide for failing to cease loiter, and others were charged for possessing articles of disguise, which is sunglasses and hat. And then, of course, Joel Davis was arrested outside the courthouse waiting for the NSN to be processed by the magistrate for allegedly displaying a Nazi symbol, because the South Australian law bans anything which is used by neo-Nazis. So Stephen Wells's lawyer, Matthew Hopkins, is now considering a legal challenge because it's basically false imprisonment on politically motivated charges. And we saw this during COVID in Victoria. All of the activists charged with incitement, and the charges were later dropped. So, of course, Monica Schmidt spent 3 weeks in prison fighting bail conditions. She had her charges eventually dropped. Now, they have dropped the charges to other members of the National Socialist Network, including Nathan Bull, but Thomas Sewell and Joel Davis, they are still amongst a handful of others who were arrested during that Australia Day weekend in Adelaide and are still facing similar charges. So they are subjected to that non-association order. Bruce says, great to see Stephen out. Senator Slayer says, yeah, how good is that? What an inspirational bloke. Now, the National Socialist Network, and I'm not sure if it's the European Australian movement as well, released a documentary last week through their whiteaustralia.org website, which I think is also going to be their political party. So it was called Summer Nationals 2025. Now, at the end, the documentary has, because Thomas Sewell's microphone was still recording when he was arrested, so it captured audio of these 2 South Australian police officers wishing that they could have shot members of the National Socialist Network. Now, Thomas Sewell has distorted their voices so that he doesn't get a charge like he did in Victoria for allegedly threatening a police officer. That was regard to the one who tried to remove a face covering at one of their protests against the asylum blockade at Docklands in Melbourne. So he said on the live stream that he was looking ways to legally reveal this police officer's identity. So they decided to charge him for threatening a police officer. So that's the reason why he is masked the audio. But I'm sure that this view expressed by these officers is probably not unique to them. I mean, how else would you get so many police officers to come out on Australia Day to arrest a bunch of people who just wanted to hold a rally, not wanting to intrude on anyone else? You just arrested them because you didn't like them.
They are arresting me because I'm celebrating Australia Day.
I said face the van.
This fucking 140's not working. That was weak as piss. They are pathetic. Are you rolling? No, okay, good. If I still roll or engage, no, I'm happy to show. Happy to, I'm happy to show them. Fucking I'm gonna say, I'll be honest with you. I'm really not these guys just need to be shit water.
Now, despite the mainstream media calling for people such as myself and Sam Newman to be cancelled, banned for interviewing members or associates of the National Socialist Network, they still can't help themselves but air all of these shows and podcasts about the National Socialist Network. And the latest was today was the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald Morning Edition podcast, where it is, well, it's bluntly titled, Neo-Nazis in Australia Want to Form a Political Party, Can They? And so it's hosted by some American, this podcast. So their crime reporter, Sharon Grosh. So she's the one who talks about this. So I'll put the link into the live chat here so you can listen to it. And then last night we had the ABC's Four Corners here in Australia airing a PBS America story, the rise and fall of Terrorgram, which was called the Terrorgram Collective on Telegram, and it was basically all of these far-right white nationalists who were advocating for violent extremism, and many of the people who have been promoting inciting people have now been arrested over in the United States. Now, the National Socialist Network is a non-violent organization who only respond in self-defense, like Tom and Jacob did when those Antifa stalkers followed them to the Cathedral Ranges in 2021. Of course, this documentary talks about Brenton Tarrant and Christchurch. Also mentions Charlottesville back in 2017 as well. So Four Corners, our ABC Four Corners, it doesn't even do original journalism all throughout the year. It just buys things from PBS in America, which Donald Trump has thankfully defunded, along with NPR, the National Public Radio, and the other foreign propaganda that the US State Department is forced to fund, like the Voice of America and Radio Free Europe. Now, over on SBS, the other Australian taxpayer-funded broadcaster, though it does have some revenue through advertising, they decided to actually air propaganda from this terrorist group who have been cutting down the colonial statues in our major cities. And they have had a victory in that the Captain Cook bust in Fitzroy Gardens is now going to be removed because the mayor there, Stephen Jolly, long-time socialist, says that the council, Yarra Council, can't afford to keep repairing it. Now, it's interesting that SBS, when they interviewed them, they were dressed the same as the National Socialist Network. Now, I can't imagine that the SBS would agree to keep secret the location and identities if they were interviewing the National Socialist Network wearing the same outfits. This group, this anti-Australian group, they are terrorists, and SBS, they should be forced to divulge who they are. Nathan Swindon says, I found the shed they were interviewed at. It was completely razed in April. So they've actually moved away there. I mean, wouldn't somebody be able to figure that out? So SBS, rather than actually investigating and exposing terrorists, they are glorifying them and protecting their identity. And this was the trailer that SBS, the feed, put up on their social media.
We had people watching for cops on at least 5 corners. We had strapped 2 ladders to the plinth so people could climb on either side, much like felling a tree, really.
They've been called extremists, accused by some of erasing Australia's history. Police are trying to find out who they are, because over the last year and a half, they've been targeting and tearing down Australia's colonial statues.
They tell one history. They tell the history of white supremacy.
Now, for years, there has been this intense debate about what Australia does with its colonial statues, and whether they should even be on display.
Do we want to move somewhere?
And this group thinks there is only one way to get change.
There's a list of priorities. Topple is obviously number 1.
I don't see them as protesters, I see them as criminals.
The decision to remove the statue is disgusting. I think it's the ultimate virtue signalling act.
It can be justified. At the end of the day, we're not harming anyone.
When they come down, there is a little bit of relief,
but they don't understand the consequences on Indigenous and First Nations people.
Now, none of them are Indigenous, those masked men. Well, I don't know if some of them could be women because all the voices are distorted, but it seems that police aren't doing a very good job tracking them down. I mean, they can dedicate all of these resources to arresting and charging the National Socialist Network for activism where they're actually not involving any vandalism, let alone physical violence. And the SBS, the feed, I mean, that's a very left-wing program. I mean, they're the only right-wing person that they've featured is Joel Jamel during their roundtable on influencers during the election. And certainly Joel Jamel loved that because it's obviously fed his ego that he is very important. Of course, they would never feature a influencer like, say, Joel Davis, for example, the other Joel. Nathan Swindon says, I undistorted their voices. Did you seriously do that? Is there technology where you can actually undistort it? That's interesting. Larrikin says, all retards. Yeah, they certainly deserve to be on that that new X account, Retards Down Under. All right, let's move on to the biggest Australian news story today. It's been called a historic day because the National Party decided not to renew its coalition agreement with the Liberal Party. So as things stand at the moment with the count, there is 2 seats in doubt. That's Bradfield in upper North Sydney, which is going to be a recount between the Teal Independent Nicolette Bolair and make sure I pronounce that. They've both got unpronounceable names here. Glacier Casparian and Corwell in Victoria, northwestern Melbourne, which is, there's a bunch of independents who got 12% of the vote each. So it's taking a lot. They've got to do a proper preference count there. But the current state of the new parliament will be the Australian Labor Party 93. They might get to 94. Now the coalition 43, but since they've broken up now, the Liberals and Nationals, so the Liberals will have 28 and the Nationals will have 15. So Susan Ley said today that the Liberal Party is the biggest opposition non-Labor, non-government party will be the official opposition, and the front bench will entirely be of Liberal MPs. Of course, last Tuesday, she was elected as leader by the Liberal Party room by 29 votes to 25 against Angus Taylor. So Jacinta Price, who defected from the Nationals to the Liberals, didn't run for deputy since Angus Taylor lost the the vote for leader. So Ted O'Brien, the member for Fairfax on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, was elected deputy against Philip Thompson, who's the member for Herbert up in Townsville, 38 votes to 16. And now Susan Ley, since she's become leader, she has said that no policy has been disavowed or has been reaffirmed. So they literally have no policies at the moment. And so the Nationals, they demanded 4 policies to continue to be part of the coalition agreement. And it was keep nuclear energy, to keep the divestment policy on supermarkets, to have mobile phone coverage in the bush, and also the $20 billion regional future fund. And Susan Ley basically said, we're not going to formulate any policy until we do a proper review. And this has been what's, I mean, given Susan Ley's history, where she just sorts of goes with the flow, she'll definitely be easy to manipulate by vested interests and the media, particularly by the ABC. So the strategy for leader has just been to have nothing, so she can't be criticised. Well, the Nationals, it seemed, decided, well, we're not going to wait around for you. We're just going to go our own way. Nathan Swindon says, do you reckon there'll be any Liberal Party members swapping to the Nationals? I don't think so. Now, the Nationals, they brag that we held all our seats. Well, they didn't win back the seat of Calare, which was retained by a National who became an independent last term, Andrew Gee. They did lose their deputy leader, Perrin Davey. Well, that was on a joint Senate ticket. But the thing is that the National Party, they only have one constituency to appeal to, which is rural and regional Australia. And obviously, the Liberal Party is trying to appeal to everybody. And of course, they hold some rural and regional seats. Susan Ley herself is the member for Farrer in South Regional New South Wales around Albury. So it's been called, I've seen all the commentary today, it's been called a disaster for the Conservative side of politics. But the thing is that in Queensland and the Northern Territory, the parties emerge. So there's the Liberal National Party of Queensland, their emerged party, but at the federal level, they can choose to sit in the Liberal or National Party room. So Matt Canavan, who challenged David Littleproud for the leadership last week, is elected as a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland, as is David Littleproud as well. And the Northern Territory, the merged party, the Country Liberal Party, I don't think the National Party would be able to broaden its appeal to urban areas. And now, obviously, it's not a good start for Susan Lay's leadership, but there is many Liberal MPs who prefer that they want to go their own way and not have the National Party constantly making policy demands. I saw that Pauline Hanson has suggested that the National Party form a coalition with One Nation, though unfortunately there's been another defection from One Nation. Sarah Game, its legislative council member in the South Australian Parliament. Now, in the Legislative Council in South Australia, they're elected for 8-year terms. So Sarah Game will still be in the South Australian upper house for another 4 years, despite being elected on the One Nation ticket. And going through this statement here, she says that there have been missed opportunities these missed opportunities are the result of the way the One Nation brand is perceived. I've tried to evolve the brand, the place it needs to be, but I've come to the position that is not possible and is limiting my ability to advocate for the people of South Australia. I want to thank the media for the opportunities given to me and the fair way in which I've been represented, and to the One Nation Party, which gave me the opportunity to be a member of Parliament. I appreciate there are people who still align with One Nation. It is my view that most of my constituency do not. I'll continue to represent both groups. I will represent all South Australians, regardless of where they come from or their religious beliefs. And so she doesn't really say much there. Now, the One Nation Party has responded, and basically it said, alleged that it's her mother, Jennifer Game, who's on the South Australian One Nation executive, and she wanted to be the lead upper house candidate at the 2026 South Australian election. And it also claims that Sarah offered to step down as an MLC to allow her mother to fill the remainder. And this is the problem that there has been with the One Nation, is that a lot of their members who are elected on the One Nation ticket get a big ego and feel that they can make it on their own. And obviously, most high-profile departure from One Nation recently was the members of the New South Wales and the Legislative Council, Mark Latham, Rod Roberts, and Tanya Mihalak. So there's the two new who are elected in Western Australia, and then of course there is the One Nation upper house Victorian, Ricky Lee Tyrell. Now, for the Senate, Malcolm Roberts looks set to retain his Senate seat, beating Jared Rennick, and I think Warren Pickering here in Victoria is a good chance of picking up the final Senate spot as well. We won't know until next month what the final makeup of the Senate will be, until all the preferences are fed into a computer and the magic a computer button, as it's called, is pressed, and the senators are elected for the next 6 years. Of course, defecting senators or upper house members is not unique to One Nation. Of course, in the last term of the Parliament, Labor had Fatima Payman leave, become an independent senator from Western Australia, then found her own party, Australia's Voice, which got nobody up at the election, but we're stuck with her for another 3 years. And of course, Lydia Thorpe leaving the Greens over wanting to be a progressive No Voice, but us here in Victoria, we're stuck with her for another 3 years. The Greens elected a new leader after Adam Bandt lost his seat of Melbourne. So Larissa Waters, the Greens senator for Queensland, was elected. Maureen Faruqi remains the deputy leader. I mean, Larissa Waters, what can I say? At least she looks pretty and has a gentle voice. She doesn't look like one of those feral looking greens. So she's a pretty face to put at the front of what has become a toxic party. Now, on the Labor government side, obviously, they're still riding high, and Airbus Elbow is back. So last week had a trip to Indonesia to visit the new president, Prabowo Subianto. Obviously, during the campaign, it was revealed that Russia had asked Indonesia to put a naval base or a military base on West Papua, which obviously was alarming. Indonesia's a non-aligned country. Obviously, we need Indonesia to help us with border control to make sure that the illegal boats cannot return. And then Anthony Albanese attended the inauguration of Pope Leo the 14th. He's rediscovered his Catholicism. Now, despite that, he didn't swear on the Bible. When he was sworn in as Prime Minister, he took an affirmation instead. He said that it's because his faith is private and he wants to represent all Australians of faith or no faith. And for some reason, he decided to dress up as Bob Catter, I think, at the Vatican, wearing an akubra with some sunglasses there. He looked utterly ridiculous. I don't know what that was about. And then in the middle of June, he's going to be traveling to the G7 in Canada. So the new parliament actually won't open until July. So the new Senate, that doesn't come into, new senators don't start their terms until July 1 anyway. Now, there's been a lot of scrutiny in the media and by business groups about the Albanese government's proposed superannuation tax on unrealized gains on superannuation accounts more than 3 million. Now, the thing that annoys me is that there's this scrutiny after the election. Shouldn't have the scrutiny been on during the election, where this was Jim Chalmers is claiming that he has a mandate for it now. And again, this was a failure of the coalition to properly campaign against a Labor tax hike, because this 3 million is not indexed, and so it's likely to affect a lot of younger Australians with superannuation balances. So I don't understand. It was mentioned like for a few days, but remember in 2019 when Scott Morrison won the miracle election, that was by campaigning heavily against Labor's proposed tax increases on capital gains, and removing the double taxation, franking credits, and also wanting to end negative gearing. So again, it's just, why are we having this conversation now? And it's a bit hard to ask the Albanese government to try not to do these things when they've got this massive super majority now. All right, let's go over to the United States. So we had yesterday the news break that Joe Biden had he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, Gleason score of 9, grade group 5 with metastasis to the bone. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physician. Now, a lot of not just political commentators but medical experts are saying, given that the president is given regular physicals, how was this not picked up until he left office, particularly going to the bone? Now, prostate cancer is easily treated. I mean, King Charles has been having treatment for prostate cancer, but is still largely had official duties, while Princess Kate was disappeared for quite a while with her cancer. Now, it does seem that this is quite a convenient distraction from the other revelations about from Biden's time as presidency, where his cognitive decline was covered up. Now, Axios, they were given copies of Joe Biden's interviews with the special counsel Robert Hur, who was investigating Joe Biden keeping classified documents in his garage next to his Corvette, and also at the Biden Center at the University of Pennsylvania. He decided not to recommend charges because he was an elderly man with a poor memory, and he keeps getting facts and dates wrong, and he has to be corrected by his staff. And amazingly, a CNN journalist, Jake Tapper, Jake Tapeworm, as Mark Dice calls him, is releasing this book co-authored with Alex Thompson, an Axios journalist, Original Sin: President Biden's Declinants Cover-Up and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Now, Jake Tapper is claiming that the media, we were hoodwinked by the Biden White House, so basically exempting themselves by, even though they dismissed as conspiracy that Biden was suffering cognitive decline. Of course, Jake Tapeworm was one of the moderators for that disastrous CNN debate for Biden, where he studied his words and said, "When we finally beat Medicare." And so this has led to this hilarious Babylon Bee article. Jake Tapper uncovers startling evidence that Biden's decline was covered up by Jake Tapper. Yeah, so basically, this is well, it's not just him, but the entire mainstream media is trying to shirk the fact that it was part of this cover-up, and it was only when it was broadcast to millions of Americans that it became undeniable. Now, also, this Biden news is also let James Comey go back into obscurity about his weird Instagram post 8647. Now, I didn't know what 86 was slang for until this. So it means to remove end usage or take something out or away. In restaurants and bars, it means an item is no longer available or the customer should be thrown out. So there's also the 86, so that can mean to get rid of or kill somebody. So there have been some people arguing that, I mean, how, like Comey is saying that, basically implying that's a natural shell formation, even though I don't think that it looks like someone did that. And of course, so 8647, Trump is President 47. So some people alleging that James Comey, of course, the former FBI director who was fired by President Trump in his first term, was calling for the assassination of President Trump. And now, I don't think that if the current FBI director, Kash Patel, decided to charge him, I don't think that that charge would stick very much. And now Donald Trump, of course, has finished up his Middle Eastern trip to the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. He didn't decide to unilaterally recognize Palestine. So the Netanyahu Israeli government is still determined to basically annex and take over the Gaza Strip. The blockade is continuing. Now, also, Donald Trump, he welcomed the first South African refugees into the United States. Of course, they are facing a white genocide in South Africa. And of course, it was on this Telegram documentary last night that the Great Replacement is just a conspiracy. But in South Africa, it is murderous reality with these black gangs murdering and torturing farmers. And of course, this is, it's not directly endorsed by the government, but they are appropriating white farmers' property to give it to blacks. There is so much, it's reverse apartheid now, with so much discrimination against white South Africans in favor of black South Africans. So I saw some meme where it says, "Oh, one of the farmers is very fat, doesn't look like a refugee." Well, doesn't mean he still can't be killed by a black gang. And of course, according to the radical left, whites can't be refugees. They have to be brown and not be Christian. Now, also happening is the P. Diddy trials, Sean Combs. Now, it's interesting that this all centers around his ex-girlfriend as the star witness, though she was a willing participant in these freak-offs. So it's amazing that Diddy, he had time for these multi-day freak-offs when he's supposed to be this record producer. So there is a possibility that he could be found not guilty, but is the FBI, have they deliberately built a flimsy case so that Diddy can be found not guilty and they can say, well, we tried, and it'll be another Epstein, where, of course, we won't know anything else about who Diddy was drugging and trafficking. There are the civil lawsuits still to go. He's accused of drugging and raping children. But this does seem to me that it's like that it could be the deep state. They might be deliberately trying to make this case fall apart. So as a way to try and delegitimize these civil cases. Now let's go over to the UK in response to Reform's huge win in local government elections and in the recent by-election. Keir Starmer has done a complete 180 on migration now and has announced a crackdown and basically said that he's now against multiculturalism. This was his press conference last week.
Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument. And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government. I would like to address the rumours of a certain meeting where a bag of cocaine was found before Emmanuel Macron, the Prime Minister of France, hid it in his pocket. Yes, we all did cocaine that day. And yes, we had a naked dance-off afterwards. This is how we do it in Europe. We like to sniff a little bit of cocaine and then we just get naked and dance and rub up against each other and shit like that. It's fun, and we're all gay, so it's perfectly fine. Anyway, thank you, and have a nice day.
Okay, that last bit there was a deep fake about Starmer admitting admitting that, yes, that used tissue was a bag of cocaine. It was a used tissue. Of course, Cocaine Gate last week, where Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, and the new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, were on the train back from Ukraine. And when they invited the press in, Macron quickly removed the tissue and Merz a stirring spoon, but from a distance, it looked like a bag of cocaine and a spoon to divvy up the cocaine. So that was just a funny deep fake that I found and that I thought I would play. But the rest of it was all Keir Starmer's own words, and it sounds like that he may have to arrest himself for being far right. Now, Lucy Connolly, the wife of a former Conservative councillor who was jailed in the aftermath of the Southport stabbing for saying that he set fire to all the migrant hotels for all I care. She was appealing her 31-month prison term she received after pleading guilty to inciting racial hatred, as she has lost her appeal, which is absolutely abhorrent. And of course, she has been denied day release to go and see her family. Though in other better news, Tommy Robinson will be released from prison this week, serving 7 months of an 18-month prison sentence. That was for contempt of court over the Silence documentary, which is now deleted from all social media. I think in the end, Tommy decided that, because he'd been placed in solitary confinement, that it was made the decision that it was enough for him in that environment. So I don't blame him for that. Not everyone has to be a Stephen Wells and just remain in prison for all that time. And now Stephen Wells, he did, I might just go back to this for a moment, he did publish on the XYZ that he was handcuffed in a van, a police van, when it was over 30 degrees, nearly he was collapsing from heat exhaustion. And also he was fed processed gruel in prison. He tried to hold out for as long as possible because he has a carnivore diet, but it seems that they want to feed prisoners all of this weak processed food, so they're weak. This is what before and after September last year to May. So this is what Australian prisons aim to do to people. So turn muscle into just stick figures. And I'm not sure what the conditions are like in the UK prison, but solitary confinement, that would certainly challenge most of us. Now, Keir Starmer, he might also be announcing this migration crackdown because one of the men arrested for allegedly arson attacking his North London home and a car outside, and as well as his former home in London. Obviously, Keir Starmer doesn't live there now, lives in 10 Downing Street. Turned out to be a Ukrainian national, Roman Lavronovic, who reportedly loves Britain, and also was an amateur model as well. And obviously Starmer is with the rest of the European leaders, standing with Ukraine for as long as that takes. So why would a Ukrainian man attack Keir Starmer's homes? Now, there has been some salacious rumours regarding that, and Katie Hopkins summarizes them in a segment from a batshit bonkers Britain A Daily video.
That set fire to Keir Starmer's apartment, his home, his old car, and all sorts of other things. Rumour has it the bad boy was recommended to Keir by Zelensky, who'd used him often and found his services to be very enjoyable. More on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so the conspiracy theory is that Roman Lavronovic is a rent boy who Keir Starmer stiffed. So a scorned rent boy set fire to his homes. There's also been 2 other men who've been arrested over the arson, but their names haven't been released. Now, there have also been 3 Iranians accused of spying for the Iranian regime, and they came to the United Kingdom as, you guessed it, illegal immigrants. And now, despite Keir Starmer talking about a migration crackdown, which includes expanding the wait time for permanent migration to Britain from 5 to 10 years, despite him saying that he respected Brexit, he's now going to have a soft reintegration with the European Union. So basically, what do you call it? A soft remain or rejoin. So there will be these youth visas that businesses will be allowed to use people from the European Union countries. 80 million will be eligible. There's no cap. 150 million if candidate states join. So there'll be 12 more years of EU fishermen being able to fish in United Kingdom waters. And so basically, despite him pledging a migration crackdown, he is reopening the borders to Europeans. So again, I mean, you can't take either side of politics seriously. The Uni Party, the Conservatives, who are in power for 14 years, and the Labor Party, that they will crack down on migration. And in fact, the Conservatives in the latest poll have fallen to fourth. So Reform in first, Labor second, Liberal Democrats number three, and the Conservatives under Kimmy Badenoch number four. So they are really dying. So yeah, Liberal Party in Australia, they're certainly not at that dire stage yet. Also, we have had the BBC's Match of the Day host, ex-English footballer Gary Lineker, finally fired from the BBC. And it was over a Instagram reel that he reshared that from the Palestine lobby. Zionism explained in less than 2 minutes, and had a image of a rat. The idea of privileging and giving exclusive rights to one group of people. So it was criticism of Zionism that finally had him undone. Though you can also be arrested in the United Kingdom for saying that there's too much anti-Semitism in the UK. So this member of the Free Speech Union, who is actually a retired special constable in Kent, Julius Folkes, 71, was handcuffed at his home by 6 police officers from Kent Police after he replied to a pro-Palestinian activist on X back in November 2023. He was interrogated for 8 hours and issued with a caution. So after the publication of his story in the Telegraph, Chief Constable Tim Smith rang in to apologise on behalf of the force and distress caused by the May the matter was investigated. Yes, they're always sorry after the fact. So Mr. Folkes' ex-post sent 2 days before police visited his home was a reaction to a news report of an anti-Semitic mob storming an airport in Russia looking for Jewish passengers. It was a reply intended to challenge a supporter of pro-Palestine marches in London who had threatened to sue Suprella Braverman, the Home Secretary at the time, for calling the demonstration hate marches. So he wrote, "One step away from storming Heathrow looking for Jewish arrivals." He later said it would have been better if it had begun, "What next? You are," but said the meaning was clear regardless. So yes, you'll be either fired or arrested for basically having an opinion on any contentious subject in the United Kingdom. Obviously, we are not there yet, though of course we have the new hate crime law at the federal level. Of course, we don't know if Susan Ley, since they basically have no policies, whether they're going to support free speech or not. But of course, Susan Ley, she used to be for Palestine statehood, and said that there was oppression going on in the occupied territories, but now she's pro-Zionist and said that Anthony Albanese is letting the Jews of Australia down. All right, so that is the end of Tim's News Explosion for another week. So just a short show this week, because obviously I'm still in recovery, but I got through the last 8 days news pretty quickly, I thought. I hope I didn't miss anything, but thank you for everyone for joining me on this Tuesday evening. Now there'll most likely be no Wilms front this Thursday, so I'll be back Tim's News Explosion at the regular time, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on the Wilms front channel. So make sure wherever you're watching, click the bell to allow for notifications. Make sure you're at least subscribed, and also give a thumbs up, like, comment below, because it all helps with the algorithm. Now, if you want to support the work of the Unshackled, you can over by taking out a premium membership at the unshackled.net/membership. So I'll put the link into there. So have bronze membership $5 per month, silver $10 per month, gold $25 per month, platinum $50 per month, or yearly for $50 per month, $100 per year, gold $250 per year, or platinum $500 per year. And you can also, so the unshackled.net, that is where our articles still are. So I published an article last week on all of the continuing crime that's happening in Alice Springs and pondering whether it's a failed city because the change in territory government doesn't seem to have changed it. Now you can support us over in Substack. So monthly $5 per month, annual $50 per year, founding member $500 per year. Or you can sign up for free because that's where our Unshackled Productions archive is, and I send email alerts out for Tim's News Explosion and other Unshackled productions. Now, I won't be travelling up to record some more reports from Richard Wollstonecroft, report from Tiger Mountain, until next week, because obviously I'm not going to be able to drive there. So I've published all the most recent reports, so I'll record some fresh ones with him next week. Hopefully by next week I should be back. I almost fully, well, I'll at least have these bandages off my leg. So thank you so much for accommodating for tonight's show. Stay safe, stay sane, stay free, and I will see you next Tim's News Explosion. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.